So let's look at what's happening in this process. Acetyl-CoA is a 2-carbon compound. We've seen that it's produced from either fats or pyruvate. So it's a 2-carbon acetyl-CoA. It enters the TCA cycle, which is this. It's called a cycle because it is a series of linked reactions. You can give it, one way to think about it is a wheel or a cycle. The 2-carbon compounds enter into the TCA cycle and react with a 4-carbon compound to form a 6-carbon compound, which is citric acid. So the first complex molecule that's formed in the TCA cycle is citric acid, which is why this cycle is also sometimes called the citric acid cycle. So we take 2 carbons, we add it to a 4-carbon, what's down here. So we have a 4-carbon right here. We add the 2-carbon to it. We form a 6-carbon compound called citric acid. And then that citric acid undergoes a whole series of reactions. Remember 2 days ago when I presented the 10-complex, really ugly side of what was going on in glycolysis and said you don't need to worry about all these different compounds? That's the same thing we're going to do here. We're going to keep the TCA cycle kind of at this level of something happens in here. There's a whole series of biochemical reactions. When you take cell biology, you'll learn a little bit more about it in depth because it's kind of a really cool system. But what happens is we've got this 6-carbon compound, and we're trying to get at the energy in those carbon-carbon bonds from the foodstuff that's coming in. So the first thing that happens is a reaction that we lose another carbon dioxide, so we minus 1 carbon here. That produces a 5-carbon compound, and we've broken a carbon-carbon bond, and in that process reduced a little bit of NAD back to NADH. That happens again in another step. So we lose another carbon, and we produce another NADH. And that gets us from a 5-carbon back to our 4-carbon compound. That 4-carbon compound, which is called oxaloacetate, don't need to worry about it, goes through some transformations, and we produce another reduced compound here, FADH, plus 1 of those. And then the 4-carbon compound, we've still got 4-carbon compounds, interacts with the next acetyl-CoA coming in. So this is a cycle that turns, and every time it turns, it produces a little bit of carbon dioxide. Every time it turns, it produces some reduced electron carriers. And if it turns really fast, then it produces a little bit of ATP. Sorry, there's one ATP over here. Forgot to mention that one. If it turns really fast, it produces a lot of this stuff. So if acetyl-CoA is entering really quickly, it's producing a lot of these things. If acetyl-CoA is entering into the cycle slowly, it's not producing a lot of these things very quickly. So let's look at the things. Let's count them. So the products, we took our 3-carbon here. We lost 1 carbon dioxide here. In the TCA cycle, we get 2 CO2s being produced. So 1 and 2. So TCA, we get 1, and we get 1 from the pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. We have 1 ATP produced from the TCA cycle. And from the TCA cycle itself, we get 1, 2, 3 NADH. We get 1 FADH. And then we have this other NADH that was produced from the pyruvate conversion up here. So really what we have is 4 NADH plus 1 FADH, a little bit of carbon dioxide. Basically, we started with, at the start of this step, We started with a 3-carbon compound, pyruvic acid, and now we have lost 1, 2, 3 of the carbon dioxide. So what the TCA cycle has done is it has broken all of the carbon-carbon bonds in the metabolite that started this process. So we take our metabolite pyruvate that's coming in from our foodstuffs, or the acetyl-CoA that's coming in from fatty acids, and all of the carbon-carbon bonds have been broken through this process.